everyone, this is Rhiannon Payne, Marketing Director at Ruby Central, and I'm here today with Kinsey Durham Grace, who's a Senior Engineer at Github and is also going to be speaking this year on a keynote panel for the final RailsConf in Philadelphia this July. Kinsey, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to talk about the panel and the last RailsConf.
Absolutely. We're really excited to have you, and this is such an all-star cast of Ruby and Rails developers joining you on stage. I'd love to just jump right into that and ask what inspired the topic for the keynote this year, and how did you choose this amazing group of people to do it with?
Yeah, since this is the last RailsConf, I really thought this is the panel that I would want to see. It's really awesome people who make up a past of what RailsConf has been, the present, and the future. I feel like there's a good mixture of folks who are really big in open source and then people who have also been really involved with Ruby Central over the years and who've done the first Rails comps and things like that. And also people who are building whole companies and bootstrapping them using Rails. So I think that there's a good diverse mixture. And I wanted to have not only curated questions that we ask them, but also opening up to the audience. We will be collecting questions here soon, asking you all for questions that you want to ask this awesome group of panelists as well.
I love that this is being framed as a conversation with the community because I think we're at this inflection point where the community and the ecosystem is really evolving. The final RailsConf, but obviously this isn't the end of the Rails ecosystem or the end of Ruby Central events. We're really growing, expanding, and looking forward to even bigger and better events with RubyConf every year starting next year. And there's so many other global events happening in the ecosystem as well that are popping up over the world. I know you spoke at Helvetic Ruby in Switzerland last week, is that right?
Yes, last week I got to speak at a Helvetic Ruby in Switzerland and Geneva. It was awesome. There's a lot of really great local kind of conferences that are happening all over the world. And I know that the San Francisco Ruby Meetup just announced they're doing a local San Francisco conference, which is great. So we keep seeing more of a push towards these and definitely something that we hope we can support as Ruby Central since this is our last RailsConf.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to SF Ruby because for once I don't have to get on a plane.
Yeah,
And Arena's been doing great work with running the SF Ruby meetups every month here. But I'd love to get into the details a little bit about the specifics of who's going to be on your panel and why you brought them into the fold for this. So I know we have Evan Phoenix, we have Marty Hott, who is our director of open source here at Ruby Central. How did you decide to bring this specific group of people together?
Yeah, I really think of Sarah, Evan, and Marty as like the OG. When I think of past RubyConf and RailsConf events, they were the original directors, they were the vision of everything. And now Marty was very involved and leads our open source work, which is great. And Sarah and Evan are still in the community and really wanted to have their perspective of how they started it and how it's evolved and what they see for the future. And then, of course, Eileen and Nadia are just such pillars in our community now. And I feel like they really also represent the present and the future. And Eileen's contributions to open source and all that she does for the community is huge. And very curious to hear what she has to say on some of these topics. And Nadia, she is incredible and has bootstrapped her very successful company using Rails and has done amazing keynotes in the past. So, really wanting to bring all these different voices together to have a great last panel for RailsConf.
It really is, like I said, an all-star cast of Rails and Ruby community folks. Nadia also was our closing keynote last year at RubyConf in Chicago, talking about how she learned to code, learned Ruby and Rails, built her business as a solo developer and CEO from the ground up, now growing past 4 million users. It really is one of those incredible Rails success stories that demonstrates the power of Rails as this one developer framework, allowing you to do so much. So excited to hear what she has to say. What kind of questions are you guys expecting from the audience? Do you have any topics that you specifically would like to cover?
Definitely want to focus on past questions, yeah, fun questions like what are your favorite memories from past RailsConf, that sort of thing. Other things we're highlighting is like where do you see the industry going and changing, especially given AI and things like that? Where do you see that moving forward? What improvements would you like to see made? And how can we continue this community aspect of Rails that has been such a big part of it? It's not only just the framework and the Ruby language, it's really the community behind it. So questions like that and just wanting to open it up to other folks who have different perspectives and questions so that way we can really have a really good conversation and dialogue.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be really great, I think. And I'd love to talk a little bit about your work and your journey with Rails. You work at GitHub, which is one of the largest companies in our ecosystem, working to drive the framework and Ruby as a language forward in many ways. What kind of work have you been doing there lately? What kind of projects have you been on?
Yeah, I've actually been working in the monolith quite a bit, but doing a lot of work around Copilot. So integrating Copilot into the monolith, things like that. I work on the extensibility team for Copilot. So basically what that means is I'm not working on the model, I'm not tuning models, I'm not doing things like that. I am building the tools around it, like how to make it useful. A big thing has been MCP and integrating that into GitHub. Also, the team that I'm on, we just released our new Padawan project, which is super exciting at Microsoft Build. And it was a lot of late nights pushing towards that. But basically, you can assign Copilot to an issue and it writes the code for you and tags you in a pull request, that sort of thing. That's mostly what I've been working on. But surprisingly, I've been doing a lot of work in the monolith as well. So a lot of Rails work, which is interesting. And then the talk I just gave in Switzerland was about like scaling Rails applications beyond caching and different things like that, of things that I've seen and learned at GitHub. Looking at statistics of how many requests we process a day, which is crazy. It's over 2 billion. And there's always a stereotype that Rails doesn't scale, and that's just not true.
I think GitHub especially is just such proof that Rails is a very scalable framework and way to approach development. And you guys are doing such cool stuff, especially Copilot. I think this is something that folks are really curious and excited about. What kind of feedback have you gotten from people in the Ruby and Rails community who have played around with Copilot so far?
Definitely good feedback. What I also love about the Ruby and Rails community is that we're pushing back a little bit on it and trying to have more of a perspective of ethical AI. So I really appreciate that. And between Nadia's keynote and Nick's keynote that we saw at RubyConf last year, it's just really understanding that we're still human and not wanting to lose that. So if you haven't watched either of their keynotes, go back and do that. But I think that's something that I've really appreciated with the Ruby community.
Yeah, I think AI has incredible potential, but we can't lose sight of the human aspect of software development and why we're building what we're building, which is why Ruby is so compelling as a language because it is so human-centric. It's been great that the Ruby and Rails community has been pushing back a little bit and asking for people to examine, like, why are we making the decisions we're making around AI and how should we be approaching this? And you mentioned ethical AI. From your perspective, as you're building things and working on things like Copilot, what does that look like to you personally? What are the things that you keep in mind?
I think at a high level, how can we push humanity forward, but in positive ways? So I really don't like the narrative of, yeah, we're building this to take developer jobs, wanting to get away from that narrative and really more of how to make us more productive. Because I work on these tools every day, I use them, and they're not there yet. You still need a developer. It's raw. The LM isn't right all the time. MCP is still very new. We're still working with context and how to give the model a bigger picture, that sort of thing. So developers are needed and still creating safe environments to work where it's not like just always a bottom line and treating people like human beings and that are not going to be replaced by AI agents.
I think that's so important and such an important message right now because folks are really, this is such a new space and there's a lot of confusion. And it's great to hear from someone like you who's on the front lines of it, building these tools that will, at the end of the day, make everyone more productive and hopefully happier and help us build better products as opposed to the fear of replacing engineers
Yeah.
with AI.
Yeah, even with Padawan, most of the time it spins me up a pull request and I use the pull request, but I close it usually. I don't just merge that, but I'll take pieces of it. So it helps me get my work done quicker, but there is no way that it can just go on its own. It's not there yet, but really just using that as a stepping stone to be more productive. And it definitely, especially in the monolith, gets really confused in big Rails apps. Yeah, just seeing it as a tool to enhance productivity rather than something that's going to replace my job. So
100%. It is incredible hearing about the work you're doing at GitHub, but I'd love to go back just a little bit and hear about your journey with Ruby and Rails. How did you find Rails and become a Rails developer?
yeah, so I have a little bit of a different story. I don't have a computer science background. One of the first talk that I ever gave a while ago was about alternative paths to becoming a software engineer, just because that wasn't a thing yet. Boot camps weren't a thing. They had just started. And I went to a Rails Bridge workshop, which Rails Bridge is, it was actually started by Sarah May and Sarah Allen. I think it was 2009. And it was amazing. It was after college. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I went to a workshop. They had free Chipotle. I was all about it. Broke college student. And we built a Rails application and it was amazing. I know, I think when the Sarah started it, they said 2% of the Rails community were women. So it was definitely geared to underrepresented groups. And I met amazing people like Desi McAdam out here, who's really big in the community. And I was eventually like, I studied textbooks and then got an apprenticeship at Thoughtbot, and that's where my journey began. And yeah, it was really hard to get there just because I didn't come from that type of background, but it's been incredible. The Rails community, Ruby community has been such a great place and welcoming, and I love it.
It is really great to hear as a woman in the Rails community doing such amazing work and you're doing a keynote at the final RailsConf and leading that panel. It is such an amazing representation of what we want in our community and I think there are a lot of folks in the Rails community who come from non-traditional academic or
Yeah,
professional backgrounds. We see that so often, and that's one thing we've been talking about internally at Ruby Central, like how do we create more pathways for people with non-traditional backgrounds to get into Ruby and Rails and have careers in this space because it is such a wonderful space to work and a wonderful community to be part of.
totally. Yep. And that's why I love it so much. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll cap this off with this is the final RailsConf coming up, not the final Ruby Central event, but
Yeah.
it is a really big milestone moment for RailsConf Ruby Central for the broader ecosystem as well. What are you most looking forward to, other than your panel, of course, at this final RailsConf?
Yeah, really celebrating and honoring this amazing event that so many people have had great experiences at. A lot of the jobs I've gotten were just because I met someone at RailsConf or RubyConf and really just celebrating how special our community is and how special this event was for so many people for so long.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to watching your panel and just to see you there and engage in the hallway track.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
and Nadia and Evan and all of these amazing folks. I think it's going to be really special. So thank you so much for putting this together. We're really excited.
Of course. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for asking all these questions and all you're doing for Ruby Central.
Thank you. Absolutely. We will see you in July in Philadelphia.
Thank you.